Mr. Secretary, I'm new here and haven't had a chance, like my colleagues, to get to know you, but they all speak very highly of you, and you come with great recommendations.
Not all of them.
Many of them speak highly of you, and I look forward to getting to know you and working with you.
Thank you.
As you know, for almost 2 years, Utah Josh Holt has been detained in a Venezuela prison without trial on spurious charges. It's my understanding that Senator Hatch has worked hard with you and other members of the delegation, Congresswoman Mia Love, to bring him home with his wife Tammy. With the heightened political turmoil in Venezuela, I've received letters and phone calls, continue to, from constituents. Just last week, we saw reports of a video of Josh, who on Facebook, who feared for his life with the riots in the Helicoid prison. Like so many Utahns, I'm concerned about his safety and hoping that the U.S. State Department is doing all they can to bring him home. Mr. Secretary, can you give me any update on his condition or any efforts underway to bring him home?
Unfortunately, I can't give you an update on his condition. We were following closely the riots that surrounded the place that he's being unlawfully detained. I have spoken with many in your delegation, yourself, Senator Hatch, communicated with Representative Love as well. Our team is very focused on getting his return. Unfortunately, we're going to have 2 of our seniors kicked out, so our capacity to reach them on the ground will actually be diminished. I'm very worried about that. Know that the plight of Mr. Holt is on our minds, and we're doing the things we can with the tools we can to encourage the Maduro regime to, at least in this one instance, do something right and send this fellow back.
Thank you. On behalf of Utahns and his family, I thank you for keeping it top of mind and doing all within your power. Last Monday, you gave a bold speech and talked about pulling out of the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, the Iran nuclear deal. You insisted that Iran end all of its nuclear enrichment and close its heavy water reactors. You promised them that if they didn't, they'd see the strongest sanctions in history. Recently, I had a chance to travel in that region. As a matter of fact, you promised them that if they didn't, they'd see the strongest sanctions in history. Recently, I had a chance to travel in that region. As a matter of fact, I followed you through a few countries by a couple of days. Without exception, there's great concern in the region. And interestingly, I heard different opinions about staying in the deal, pulling out of the deal, but what was unanimous and was not contested is that the deal would lead to Iran having nuclear weapons, maybe sooner rather than later, but eventually having nuclear weapons. And that was unanimous among all the countries that I visited, which, as you well know, is totally unacceptable. In addition to the sanctions, what else can we do, and what else can I tell the Utahns to expect to move us towards a situation where we wouldn't have nuclear weapons there?
So there are many tools in addition to the economic sanctions. There are designations of senior leaders that will impact those leaders' capacity to move around the world. Our efforts in Syria they're designed certainly to protect our friends, Israel, the Jordanians, and others. But to the extent we are successful in the counter-ISIS campaign, we also contain the space in which Iran can move with great freedom and set conditions in Syria, which will, for the first time in a long time, begin to call out Iran for what they're really doing there, which is not fighting terrorism, but rather working to expand their power. Iran moves in lots of parts of the world. We are aiming to build a global effort, much like we were successful at doing against North Korea, to call out the Iranians. So if there are Iranians working in countries, we're going to work to convince folks that they ought not be doing the things that create the wealth that, frankly, has been used in ways that the Iranian people don't want it used.
Thank you. I agree with that comment about their influence. We hardly visited a country where you couldn't see an Iranian or Russian presence pressing on a border or in some way impacting that country. Let me quickly turn to North Korea. As a CIA director, you visited there. We have these talks coming up. It seems that the expectations have been elevated to anything less than world peace, right, is unsuccessful. What would you have me take back to Utahns about reasonable expectations? Just a really quick answer, please.
At its core, this problem gets solved when these 2 leaders both agreed that the solution we're aiming for, complete denuclearization of North Korea in exchange for fundamental assurances for the North Korean regime. If we can get the two to agree that that's the end state we're working towards, we will have had a good day.
Thank you. I yield my time.